Ray had the chance to have a short and small snack, so she will be able to survive the last 30 minutes. I will follow up on the presentation. So let's share the screen. Okay, so before the break, we took a look at the industry analysis, as you remember. So we checked the company analysis. We took a look at the market analysis. Now we are done with the industry analysis, and now we're going to take a look on the competitive analysis. And this would be the next step. After you realize how the market and the industry is working, you would take a deeper look onto your competitors, onto your direct and maybe also onto some indirect competitors. Some of these aspects I wrote down here on this slide are more for already existing company, because of course you don't have to do adjustments if you are new on the market. But let's think again about the business RPA, the company who's creating robotics for process automation, and maybe they want to see if their competitors are maybe working in a better way. Then they would follow this plan. So there would be a phase one, the planning, which would include the identification of the areas of benchmarking. We will see it on the next slides, what these areas could be. Because it doesn't make sense to just take a competitor and check the competitor what they are doing and how they are doing. First, you have to see in which specific areas you want to check with your competitors. Maybe you only want to focus on the strategy, on their marketing strategy or approach, or you want to compare how they do the talent acquisition. Yeah. Then, after you define what the benchmarking areas are, you have to find benchmarking partners. That means the competitors you want to or the other companies you want to compare to. Usually, you're going to take therefore a competitor which is pretty close, but sometimes it can also make sense to take a look on a competitor that is even not in the same branch, but to do something more innovative. If you see that a company is doing a very an outstanding employer branding, it's not needed that or necessary that or you would maybe be able to take over some of ideas, although they are not working in the same industry. What's also very important, if after you defined what your benchmarking partners would be, or who your benchmarking partners would be, is to define their data collection method. Yeah, where do you get the data from? Do you do a survey? Are there portals that deliver a lot of numbers? How do you do it? Or do you ask employees of that company or former employees? Do you ask clients? Or do you know? Do you use online platforms, etc.? This is pretty important that you define it first, because the quality of the data also leads to different results. In the second phase, is the analysis itself, so the collection and analyzation of the data. So you have to compare the information you received about your benchmarking partners with your own processes and structures, and then you will find out what the gap is. Sometimes it's a gap on your side, but maybe it's also you find out that there's also a gap on the other side. So maybe a USP on your side you haven't seen yet. And yeah, after you define or you identified your gaps or the gaps, you can also set up the new performance levels and structures. And in the third phase, you have to integrate the respective changes. That means you have to communicate what you found out about the benchmarking partners, about the gaps on your and their sides, and what your conclusions are, and also what your goals, of course, are. And then you have to, in the fourth phase, you have to process the actions. That means to define an action plan or project plan, to implement changes, what do you do differently? Maybe they use a specific CRM solution, customer relationship methods, and then you will use the same tool. That might be a very big IT project, but it might be also that they just did slight changes in their online marketing, something. And of course, as always, when you implement something, when you change something, then you have to monitor the progress, and you have to maybe you have to adapt and adjust something. You have to always keep the goal in mind. And in the fifth phase, hopefully, you attained a stronger market position because of your changes, and because you are working now using best practices, or you realized your new USPs. And you also have to adjust the benchmarks, because this is not something you do once in a time. You should do this continuously, regularly. And it makes sense to work then with the new benchmarks, because you already created maybe a benchmark other companies want to achieve. Okay, so a question to you. When we go back to this planning phase, identify areas of benchmarking. I already mentioned one possible area, but let me know, what are your ideas? What can be criteria you would compare with the other companies? Who has some ideas? You can use the chat as well. Or talk to me. Okay, maybe I'm going to call one Chen. Chen Su, do you have an idea what areas can be interesting for a comparison or a benchmarking? Imagine that you are working in a company and you want to compare with the competitors. What aspects or criteria of your company would you compare? I cannot hear you. I see your microphone is off, but I cannot hear you.
I'm not quite sure about that.
Do you have any idea? Maybe so one you could, for example, compare the strategy or the target market, but there are there are many different parts how companies are working that you can compare. Okay, no worries. Anyone else who has an idea?
Profit.
Okay, and yeah, this can be one number. But of course, from only from the information of the profit or the growth, you don't know what they do differently, right? What you want to achieve is, for example, yeah. Okay, we're going to take a look on this slide. So, of course, you can compare the strategy, the market strategy, or also, for example, the strategy in regard in
the process.
Yeah, the strategy, how they do talent acquisition or whatever. There are a lot of strategies set up in companies. You can also take a look on their vision and mission statements, for example, that lead to the strategy. You can validate their processes, so internally, but also externally. For example, if it's a service company, you would be able to compare. So I was working for a recruitment company, and what we often did is that we compared how how other companies set up the new processes with their clients, and we saw that there were differences. You can also compare their internal structures. Maybe they are working in a very lean or self-organized way, while you are working in a very hierarchy-based model. That doesn't mean that something is bad, but you can compare this, or you can see what kind of methods they are using, like project management tools, process management tools, how even how their PowerPoint presentations for customer pitches look like. That's pretty interesting. What they, not only the design, but also what kind of information they deliver. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, as you mentioned, Lee, the output and results are interesting in respective to the market volume or potential, for example. Yeah. And also maybe you can identify some success factors, but I'm a bit afraid that success factors are very, very, very individual, and that you never, it's usually not one or two success factor, it's a wide combination of different factors that lead to success. And it doesn't mean if you do everything like company A, you as company B will be successful as well, because time and market situation and so on are also very important. If you then want to compare these areas and do the data collection, so let's get back to the slide before. So you identify the areas of benchmarking we saw on the next page, and you determine the data collection method. And when you are thinking about these aspects, you also have to think about how you are doing these processes, how your strategy is working. Why do you work with this strategy? What is the reason why you are using a special method? Is it for you internally best practice, or is it just that you always use that method? And then you're going to take a look, of course, on the competitors. You should take a look on who are the best in class competitors, but as I mentioned before, it might be also interesting to take a look on totally different companies, but successful companies, of course. Or as well on companies who weren't successful, who failed, and to try to find out why they failed. Now, this can help you as well to not make the same mistakes. You don't have to do everything or try to do everything on your own. You can also learn from others. Sorry. Okay. So if we remember this image here, we now gained all information required for internal and external analysis to identify how our marketing chances are. And to bring all this information together, it's pretty useful to use the SWOT analysis. And I'm pretty sure you already heard about the SWOT analysis, and I heard some of you talking about that. So maybe you could explain what the 4 numbers stand for. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What does it mean? Who likes to explain at least one of these?
I still remember it's 4 different pictures. One is start with the mind, and then I remember it's a picture of cow, which means you can profit from that level. Oh God, I forgot the last one.
No worries. Who wants to add something? You can use the chat as well. But you want to add something more, Lee?
Yeah, generally speaking, it's you have an idea and then you just do it. You just do it. And when your idea gets successful, you can benefit from that. And in the end, okay, that's all that I can remember.
Yeah. Okay,
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No worries. It's not a test, so it's important to bring all this information together. Maybe we just go through these 4 areas step by step. So we have this internal view. You remember taking a look on your own companies to define what are our strengths and what are our weaknesses, of course, the internal view. What is helpful and what is or might be harmful. So that means characteristics or features, functions, competences, resources that give us as a company an advantage over other competitors. That means what can we do better than others? Or where are we very strong? Of course, you have to keep in mind that, especially because of the globalization that's a very important part, the globalization. It's very difficult to define strengths that are totally unique. This so-called USP, unique selling proposition, is pretty hard to reach. It was easier years ago, but now we are working more and more. International competitors are coming up from other countries, and they are I don't know, maybe a bit stronger in technology aspect, or it's cheaper to produce products. They are closer to the customer market, whatever. So competition is growing, and also the dynamic of the development of products and services is extremely increasing in these times. And so, as I said, to gain a unique selling proposition is pretty hard. But what you can do is to describe or to combine different strengths. As I said, maybe you have special resources in your company. You have people with a lot of experience and knowledge, which is not typical for the market. And you have special, I don't know, you have your IT solution. When we go back to the RPA, the business RPA company, your solution is a bit special in comparison to others. So this would be an internal view. And of course, you also have to check what are the weaknesses. If you are entering, for example, a very mature market, then it might, the entering of the market is very, needs a lot of resources, and maybe you don't have them, then this would be a weakness. Or you don't have a special competence, might be a weakness. Yeah, it's very individual to define this. So again, the weakness means something internally, something function, resources, characteristics that makes disadvantage to your competitors. Yeah, I had something in mind. Yeah, maybe your product is, or your service is very, it's quite interesting, not totally new, but you make something very differently, but that needs a lot of time and resources. And so you cannot hold the price, which is common at the market. That might be a weakness, an internal weakness, because you need a lot of the workload, or the as I said, the amount of time and resources you need, the capacities are pretty high in comparison to the price. Then we're going to take a look on the external view. You remember the market analysis and also the industry analysis and the benchmark. So you have the external view with the opportunities and threats. That means things that can happen on the market, also because of your positioning, that leads to opportunities to support your profit growth, or there could be a risk for your profit growth. For example, if you're like the RPA company, I will come back to that again. If in general, it's an opportunity that more and more companies are now focusing on process automation by interfaces, by artificial intelligence, and also by RPA solutions. Yeah? And this is a general opportunity that could lead to profit growth. And if they are able to handle their strengths and weaknesses. But on the other hand, it might be a threat that if they are focusing on that market, on a special market, like they do in our scenario, they are focusing on process, on internal processes and service processes. Imagine that their customer segment, the market will decrease. So there will happen something economically, and that might be a threat. Also, of course, coronavirus for our economy is a threat. So, but it's such a big threat, you couldn't it was pretty hard to assume before what would happen and which industries would gain the highest or the lowest losses. Okay, so clear so far. And I would stop right now because the next step would be to take a look onto the segmentation or the design of the marketing strategy, but we have just 4 minutes left, and I think we should repeat again the to-dos for you for the next days. So just an outlook regarding the marketing management process and also the introduction into marketing. Next week, I'm pretty sure we will end with the marketing input. We can start with the consulting the week after. So next week we will take a look onto segmentation, target market, and positioning, and also a brief introduction into marketing controlling and evaluation. Yes, this is not relevant at the moment, so we'll skip these slides. Okay, so first of all, who will do the repetition of this part we talked about today? That means about the industry analysis, benchmarking, and also the SWOT analysis. I need 2 students. Liang and Zoe did it last time. Okay, so then no one, it's on then in 4Ps. STP. Ray, I don't know what you mean with your comment. STP. Maybe you can explain. So I would announce then that Ray and Chen would take over the repetition of this part, and yeah, I will send you the presentation as you already know later on by email. So Ray and Chen, and we're going to do it like we did it today, or we try to do it, and this will be the introduction of the follow-up. And then, so I will enter this as well into our, so the repetition is done for the 23rd, and I add another task, content repetition of May 7th. And this is Ray and Chen Su. So this is your task, you both. Okay, and yeah, then let's get to the outlook, to the actions until next week. I just created this in our last break because what we defined and agreed upon was that Lee will take over the project coordination. So you are responsible to keep also the others a bit on track. Your task will be until May 12th, that means Tuesday, to design the project plan in Trello. You remember, we already set it up in your project workboard.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. There's some of you missing, but 3 already entered, and this is your main task. And I recommend that you also try to define who will be responsible for which task, and or which task should be the first to take to deliver. And please also define together in what way you want to communicate outside of our sessions on Thursdays. In addition, there's the preparation, prepare repetition. Yeah, there's a preparation of the repetition, of the content repetition. Some segmentation needed, required. It's the industry analysis, competitor analysis, and SWOT analysis. And we will then next week follow up by new input regarding segmentation, positioning, and so on. And okay, what's missing here? So it's live work, self-study. Okay. So you already received the document, the Railway 7P document I showed you before on Slack. There are also the questions already written down. And yeah, I expect you to read the document and to answer the questions in Slack for yourself. So we will be able to talk a bit about this document and the information. Any questions regarding your to-dos?
All clear.
Yeah, I think so. If I hear nothing, I think I guess it's clear. Okay, so yeah, then this is it for today. We're gonna see each other or pictures of each other next week on Thursday. And yeah, please send me a note when your project plan on Trello is ready. Then I can give you feedback before Thursday.
Okay, so the deadline is Thursday, right?
The deadline for the project plan is Tuesday, the 12th.
Oh,
you can see here.
okay, yeah. Got it.
And because I want to use the Wednesday to give you some feedback, and maybe you can already do some changes until Thursday. Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Okay, perfect. Then have a nice rest of the week, and yeah, I hope you will have some time for yourself as well, and not only work. And yeah, see you soon. Bye.
See you next week.
See you. Bye-bye.